Welcome back to Planet 13 and Cultivated Live. Now it's just me and Krista. Jeremy's on his way to a flight, so thank Jeremy for all his work over the past couple of days. And we are here with Bernie from Atlas Global Brands. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much.
Well, it's good to see you in person. We haven't done that, I don't think, in a long time. I get to ask a question that I've been thinking about for, a week plus. You have a brand with Snoop Dogg, Dog Pound, spelled in a really cool way. We could talk about that. But there was a couple of weeks ago, he was part of a marketing campaign where he said he was giving up smoke. And people sort of in the cannabis industry were confused with what that meant.
The speculation of a product dropping here.
He has not given up cannabis. He was something for a solo stove. But how did that bring interesting attention to the brand, one of your brands?
Well, yeah, definitely. We always see Snoop Dogg has always been synonymous with cannabis, right? And that's always been the fun part. So my phone was blowing up. What's going on with Snoop? Is this going to change anything? Because, of course, with Atlas, we're in 7 international markets and we have exclusivity with Snoop. So that was a lot of the conversation. So it was really, hey, let's pause. He's always really good at his marketing activities. And like you said, we saw it was for a smokeless fire pit for consumers.
Yeah. I love the smokeless fire pit. They don't need my help. They don't even need Snoop's. They crush at those solo stoves. But it is interesting in that there have been a lot of celebrity brands, let's call them, right? And some come across as just flat, like there's no connection to the product. It seems very basic, actually. Mm-hmm. Like not even marketing 101, but like pre-marketing 101. But talk about this brand and then what it means, sort of the whole portfolio, because there is something uniquely authentic about Snoop Dogg and cannabis that works. But talk a little bit about that relationship.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, obviously we know Snoop Dogg has launched in previous, with previous LPs, and this was the time to really get it right. And so when they came with the brand Dog Pound, and we were the first one to bring that to life, and it's D*G pounds, right? And Dog Pounds kind of came to life. It was really around, okay, how do we launch this and make it compelling? Because we've heard the debates. Is it brands? Is it price? Is it potency? With Dog Pounds itself, and I'm a big brand marketer with my background, is it's going to drive trial. And we know it's going to create conversation, and we're going to get initial distribution with retail. How do we ensure we get repeat? Well, we all know this. Put the greatest product in the bag and deliver on price-value relationship. You deliver that and the value exceeds the price with the consumer and it has bag appeal, you'll get repeat. So, our we have all-in-one vapes. They do exceptionally well. And we've got really unique names like, we've got Lottie Dottie and Cryptic Chronic. So it all ties back to Snoop. And funny enough, he approves it. It's like, hey, what do you think of this name? And we'll talk to the CEO of Doggy Style Records, Tiffany. She's amazing. Like, here he is. He likes it. Boom. We launch it. So he's very, very involved. It's not just a partnership where you're licensing the brand.
That's interesting. Mm-hmm. I like that.
That level of connection and being able to truly be authentic to say, give a stamp of approval on a product, I think is one of the differentiators when something feels intentional versus not. You actually just hit on something that I think is really topical in Canada and is becoming much more topical in the US, and that is initial distribution numbers are one thing, but reorder numbers are really where you see success or sustainability in the space. What trends have you seen in terms of distribution and reordering in Canada that influence how you look at other markets now?
Yeah, so on the distribution side, we're very lucky. It was curiosity. Dog Pounds, D*G, it's trademarked, right? It's Snoop. Everyone knows it's Snoop. So that was a big piece. It was a lot of the trial and educating the bud tenders, but first impression is everything. And we've all seen this and been in this space. You too, and I've known you both for a while now. You fool the consumer once, you're screwed. You fool them twice, rapid fire, and they'll tell everybody. But every particular product, and even with Snoop, and we had the philosophy here was, if Snoop walked into a dispensary and he bought his brand randomly, will you be proud of that brand and him smoking it? If the answer is yes, we've done our job. And so that has really driven the repeat. And even on the bud tender side, they're very unique flavor profiles, and really having his approval on that has been helpful. And on the international side, that's how we've spearheaded a lot of it. So Atlas Global, we're just under a year old. We're traded on the CSE under ATL, and the biggest thing that we've been able to do is utilize his brand, because let's face it, he's a global icon. You're launching a Snoop Dogg brand? Well, great. Same strategies, right? You use that as a way to get in, you portfolio sell, and you create a value proposition that's segment-based for the consumer. Like it's a very methodical and thoughtful approach.
Your background before cannabis was beverage?
Head of marketing for Jack Daniel's, Brown-Forman, and Dr. Pepper Snapple Group. Right. So CPG, Bev, Alc, and cannabis, but really classically trained on that marketing side and business development side.
Yeah. What are some of the same things or differences? Or are there are tried and true methods that will work and you got to check these boxes, but cannabis adds a layer of uniqueness or compliance? Like, what is...
It's funny. We always like to compare it to CPG, and it is. And there's a big thing, but I always like to reference, Red Bull, and I still use it to this day, right? The product tastes like crap, but you know what? They use the marketing to overcome the taste barriers of the product every single time, and they win. It gives you wings. Guess what? Snoop Dogg, and I made the commitment when we partnered with him, it's the best product in the bag, because you know what? Product first. This is what it is. We're converting the illicit market to the legal market, and if the product doesn't deliver, it doesn't matter who's on the bag, what the name is.
They'll never give you wings.
Win them back. And that's critical. And even all the way down to the genetics, right? Like we have a nursery at our Stratford facility in Greenseal. We want the most exotic genetics, and I'm not buying them from labs where they sell them to everyone, and it's no disrespect to the value chain. It's everyone has to create and monetize their opportunities. We're constantly pheno hunting and really making sure we have something compelling that when it comes out, the other LP next to me, whether it's domestic or international, is not going to bring that out, because I know it's literally unique to us.
You bring up something really interesting with Red Bull, and that is that their entire physical presence and digital presence is all lifestyle, which is incredibly difficult to do in cannabis in Canada specifically, is to be lifestyle focused and not include kind of product, and then with the product be product centric, basically. Earlier you were talking a little bit about relationships with bud tenders. What is something that you've done with bud tenders and the brand that has created good connection over the last year outside of just the product being great? Because we all know that bud tenders have difficulty sometimes accessing product as well, specifically in Canada where we have a floor of wholesale prices that comes through.
Yeah, the biggest thing that we've done was really making sure we connected what the positioning, what the brand is, and what the actual product is. And yes, you're right, it's product first, but we got a product called Juicy Ooey, okay? That's a Snoop saying, it's a Snoopism. Juicy Ooey, well, you smell it. It smells like a juicy fruit gum, and it tastes amazing, and it hits the marker. And when you open that up, it's key. But the thing is, we all know, when you see all these great U.S. brands coming over, they have a different price expectation. Like we're here in Las Vegas, pricing is very different, and price elasticity is very different in the U.S. versus Canada. Well, you know what? When you come in Canada, and you know pricing extremely well, the elasticity is very tight. And again, same with our brand portfolio is, I always like to use brands and connections. So let's use another brand, just like Starbucks. Back in the day, hey, I thought I could charge a latte for the same 3.5 gram and use that as a price elasticity on a product. Well, guess what? That's not today. I believe in the elasticity around, call it a pint coffee, $2-3. That's it, right? And so it's got to deliver on that side of things.
You've seen the industry, you have a background in CPG, and are there? I don't want you to badmouth competitors, but are there steps that you see competitors make? You're like, oh my god, that's never going to work. Is the industry so new that you still see people either making the same mistakes or making mistakes that you just like?
You know what? It's a journey. We've got incredible partners, and we're all making mistakes and learning together. And you know what? That's why I love about our industry is we're competitors, but we're all partners at the end of the day throughout the value chain. I would say, and it's going to be a topic that comes up, and I'm not going to go into details, but we know the excise tax is just ridiculous in terms of making a business sustainable. I would say the biggest challenge that I would say that's going to evolve, and this is for everyone, is rationalization of SKUs. So if you think of CPG,
You're
my
making,
God.
you're making
alcohol.
Krista so happy.
Yeah, because it's how is a store going to carry so much? At the end of the day, you keep launching products. Your share of wallet is your share of wallet. When there's new products, something's trading off. You only have so much money as a retailer. And so I think that level of how do we start to bring that down? And it almost needs to be as an industry, as partners, to be able to say, let's make this unique, or otherwise the tail's so long, and that's going to actually impact us. And that's why I say, are people doing it right and wrong? They're trying different strategies, but to me, it's fewer, bigger, better, and really making sure that people have focus, and that's harder to actually execute on.
Right, it's easier to say than to do.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the lifespan of a SKU in store, in Canada it sits at about 8 months, and in the US it sits somewhere between 3 and 4, depending on the state.
Yeah.
And so I think what that actually tells us is that customers are looking for newness when we don't have a distribution body in the middle, basically, who's defining kind of like the call cycle and the product life cycle. And so instead, if we're looking for newness, it's like, when does newness show up? How do we communicate newness? And what does that actually look like? It doesn't have to be net new brand every time, but it has to there has to be a connection with the customer who is expecting to see something that might be a different flavor profile, or it might be a different strain profile, or maybe a packaging option, depending on what it is, to be able to keep customers engaged. And I think that's something that the Canadian space has had really struggled with different options now coming to market with a solution to that. But lifespan in market is a really interesting metric to compare.
And that's where the positioning of a brand, and I believe, really comes in, is as you mentioned, people want fresh product, new cultivars, continue to rotate it through. What's that brand ultimately going to position, and what's that almost, yes, there's a surprise element that we all love in retail, but there needs to have that level of predictability in terms of when it's coming out and what's that theme going to be. And I think that's where brands lack the ability to actually know what do they want to be and who they actually are. Like, we're still growing in this industry. Like, I think about my kids, like, they don't know who they are. They continue to evolve, and they pick up different things about themselves, and they ultimately become who they are. The brands are still doing that. Whereas, like, I think of a celebrity brand like Dog Pound, the positioning is very clear. Right? It is a lifestyle brand, yes. It is representing Snoop, but there's a level of authenticity that connects that you're going to get what you expect. I think some brands have done well, when I think of brands like, General Admission's done a really nice job in building, authenticity in the market, and there's a few others as well. But still, it's a fight. And then now, you're bringing your retail partners, and you do a lot on retail analysis as well. That's another conversation of, well, how do you navigate through, facings and product placement and distribution there, which, again, is another interesting topic I'm sure you're all talking about.
It's that, and it's like you're talking about brands learning and sort of entering markets and learning how long things are on shelves and the SKU rationalization and all that. But the retailers are on the same, or even a steeper learning curve with how to actually make their world work, right? And they're constantly in flux, and like they're super cash strapped. Like it's like
and that's it. So it's like, as pioneers and leaders of the group now, that's why, at Atlas Global Brands, we're focused on the international market.
Right.
Because it's our job to take, and I know there's groups in the US as well, as how do we take all these learnings and really expand and drive market growth in these markets. And so we're in Australia, we're in Israel, we're in the UK, we continue to grow there, but it's bringing in cultivars, because back in the day, I hate to say it, but the joke was, if it wasn't high potency years ago, send it internationally. That was literally the theme. But it's not the case anymore.
Right.
They want, so like Snoop, same expectation when we go out there. So suddenly we're disrupting, saying we want to be leaders and really bring great products into the market that they expect and want to try and continue to buy, and that's that support on that side. But I look to all the Canadian LPs, and many are going into it, is how do we help shape, like Canada's great and we got a great $4.5 billion market, but let's start to help cultivate and add value to the rest of the world, because we have to take advantage of that, and that's the benefit of being in Canada.
Yeah, and actually we've heard previous conversation with some taking that cue and going to states like identifying which states in the U.S. are going to be their markets. But similarly, the other markets around the world are actually going to look a lot more like Canada, I believe, than the U.S. Like it's going to be federal regime, it's going to be hyper-regulated, it's going to be a lot of government oversight or interest in it.
Involvement.
And U.S. is unique, right? Like let's call the elephant out of the room.
Yeah.
This is a very different time in terms of working capital and cash and investment.
Yeah.
U.S., good luck. Like it's a huge market, but good luck battling the Curaleafs of the world. Right? Like it's going to be a challenge, right? Whereas in the international
we bleep out every MSO name, actually.
Yeah, exactly, right? But whereas you go internationally, and it's like, okay, you're really building something sustainable. They want to find the partners that are tried, tested, and true. And with EU GMP, it's just okay. It's very, very consistent and predictable. And more importantly, like let's change it, and that's where we're really headed on. And I would say the themes that I talk to with a lot of the investment community is, yes, Canada's great. It's a red ocean. We all know that. It's a fight. It's a dog fight. Whatever category you're in. Let's look over here and really do something and shape it and help to change that, because it's really in a unique time where, packaging still like it's 10-gram jar bags or as an example, right? And it's very, very simple. So let's make sure we really develop and lead on that. So that's really a key focus.
Yeah. I really enjoyed this conversation. Anytime Snoop Dogg comes up in a business conversation, I'm down.
And he's incredible. Like we had him for launch in Toronto, and he's so engaged. So he's been a real great supporter, and expect greater and new innovation to come in Canada. We're excited about that.
Really excited for that. So thank you so much. Thank you for joining us here today. Thank you for waiting and being patient, and sharing expertise and insight. And we look forward to following year 2 of Atlas Global Brands, and we'll have you back to sort of talk about all the things that are going on. So thank you so much, Bernie. We're here at Planet 13 for Cultivated Live. We have one more group of guests, a twofer. We're going to be talking to the team from Elevated Signals, so we'll be right back with Paul and Liam. And thank you, Bernie.
Thank you.